Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome from OIC Brighton. And what we are going to do this morning is talk you through our UCAS process and timelines, which hopefully you're going to find very helpful if you have students in year 13. If you have any questions at all, please do be adding them to the Q&A section of this team. And then after Kirsten has presented, then she will then go through and start answering those questions. Just to reintroduce ourselves, my name is Dr. Gemma Hannon, and I'm the Deputy Principal Academic at OIC Brighton. And then joining us today, we have Kirsten Dickers, and she is our new Head of Sixth Form and hugely experienced in the realm of university applications, and part of her roles previously have included being an admissions tutor for Cambridge University. So she's hugely experienced as she works alongside your child and their very exciting university applications. Kirsten, if you can move on to the next slide. These are some of the details that we are going to go through today. I'm going to first of all talk you through predicted grades and the process that we are following at OIC Brighton. We will then talk through admissions tests, application deadlines. Those will be both deadlines to the college so that we're able to process all of our applications in a really timely way, and making sure that those applications are very strong before they head off to the universities. And then we also will go through the processes of finalising the UCAS personal statement, the support that's available from us at college, as well as a wider process for application submission. Just as we begin then about predicted grades, those predicted grades we call the UCAS predicted grades. These are grades for the purpose of applying to university courses. So therefore they are the grades purely for that purpose. We ensure that they are positive. So the best case scenario for a student who is working on a very good trajectory, but they are also evidence-based, and for that reason we don't change grades and increase them without a very careful consideration of what is in the best interest of both the student but also for what we have the evidence for. Now those grades have been shared with the students individually on a provisional basis, and any queries that students have had about those predicted grades we've been following up over the last week, going back to departments and discussing with them what those grades are likely to be. We also have explained to the students the evidence by which those grades have been arrived at. So the teachers have considered AS level performance, including UMS. They've also looked at any Year 12 summer assessment performances that students have taken as well. We are aiming to share these grades via parent portal within the next week, and that will be accompanied with a letter which details that. And then we've been very careful to share with students that there are opportunities for them to provide evidence to increase their predicted grades. Now we've explained that these will take place on Saturday the 5th of October, when 2 or 3 subjects can be taken as an option instead of taking their usual skits on that particular Saturday, or grades can be increased following the October midterm assessments. We will not be using weekly skits as evidence to increase grades, and that's because the nature of those assessments mean that students take them at different times during the day, and it also means that students for their skits often have a bit more of an indication about what the content is ahead of the skit taking place. So that is why we've separated skits from other assessments to evidence the increase in predicted grades, because we need to make sure that these grades are very evidence-based, and then alongside those grades we support your child in the strategy that they have so that they are making the most competitive application to university for them. On our next slide, we have information about the Year 12 assessments. This was shared with you about a week ago, and again our students are able to see when the assessments will take place across this academic year. And hopefully as parents you also find that helpful, so that you know when assessments are taking place. And then just a reminder that students should not be requesting absences from college during term time unless for very exceptional reasons, which of course we do consider. So if there are any points where you would like to request your child to be out of college for whatever reason, please do be in touch with myself, and then we will ensure that a discussion is followed up with you. Okay, so I'm now going to hand over to Kirsten, our head of sixth form, and she's going to talk you through the UCAS process in much more detail. And again, do have questions in the chat bar if that would be helpful, and we will come to those at the end.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about, first of all, university admissions tests, which several universities use. It is slightly complicated because, unfortunately, universities use different tests and sometimes have different deadlines depending on where they're applying. So these are the deadlines that I've already shared with students. If a student wants to apply for law at quite a few universities, there is a test that they need to do called the LNAT, the Law National Admissions Test. And the deadline for that is quite early, 15th of September. They need to have done that test or registered for it if they want to apply to Oxford or Cambridge. If they don't want to apply to those two universities but still want to do law, it may be that they still need to do that test, but they have a little more time to do that. If the students are applying for maths or physical science courses at Cambridge or Imperial College, so at Imperial College it's physics and engineering, at Cambridge it's natural sciences, engineering, veterinary medicine, I think, and biotechnology. They will be doing a test called the ESAT, and they need to register for that by the 16th of September. If they're applying for subjects like computer science, economics, mathematics at several universities, Cambridge, but some others as well, they may have to do a test called the TMUA, the Test of Maths for University Applications. If they want to do medicine, then nearly all universities, medical schools use the UCAT test, and they need to have registered for that by the 19th of September. Oxford University has its own set of tests for various subjects, and the deadline for registering for those is the 4th of October. And then if students are applying to some of the universities that use the ESAT or the TMUA, but they're not applying to Cambridge, then the deadline for registration is the 9th of September. So I've already spoken to all Year 13 students about this, and I've asked them all to confirm with me, first of all, whether they think they need to sit a test, so I can help them check that, and also confirm that they've registered. And I know that pretty much all of the students I've spoken to have already registered and arranged their test dates. The actual test dates vary as well. So the earliest one is the UCAT, which students can sit on various dates. One thing that's perhaps different this year from previous years is that all these admissions tests now have to be sat outside the college. So we're not allowed to administer them. They all have to be sat at a Pearson VUE test centre. And I believe our nearest one is in Hove, but there are many centres also in London as well. So students can find a convenient test centre for them. So the upcoming deadline is the UCAT, where they have until the 26th of September to sit that test. But there are many dates they can do that. They just need to book a date. Similarly with the LNAT for law, they have until the 15th of October to sit that test if they want to apply to Oxford or Cambridge. Then the ESAT and the TMUA have very specific dates. Those tests can only be taken if they're applying to Oxford or Cambridge. Oxford use different tests. So the ESAT and the TMUA for Cambridge are on either the 15th and 16th of October for the ESAT, so they have to book one of those dates, or for the TMUA, it's the 16th and 17th of October. Oxford's tests the date depends on the subject, but they start on the 21st of October, and I think the last one is the maths admissions test is the 31st of October. So they will have various dates for those. I am aware that some of those dates will fall during our enrichment week. If students are planning to go home or go to another country for enrichment week, there are test centres in most countries, so I can help students search for those if necessary. Then there are some later dates in December for the law test if students are not applying to Oxford or Cambridge but are applying to LSE or UCL or King's College in London. If they are not applying to Cambridge but still need to do the ESAT or the TMUA, they can do it in January. And similarly, the LNAT for other universities and the ones I've mentioned, the deadline would be the 25th of January. My advice to students would generally be, if they are ready and prepared to sit, certainly the ESAT and the TMUA, on the earlier dates in October, because that means that their application can be progressed. So the university, once they have that piece of information, can start considering their application. Whereas if they wait until January to do it, the university won't review their application until after they've done the test. But do remember that students can only sit these tests once in an academic year. So they can't do the ESAT in October and then decide they want to try it again in January. They can only do it once. I also wanted to share our deadlines for university applications, and I know this has already been shared with students and parents. And as Gemma explained, we do set slightly earlier internal deadlines for these applications to be completed. That's because the student completing the application is not the end of the process, as I'll show you later. Once they've completed their application form, we will review it very carefully. We'll check all aspects of the application, make sure that there are no mistakes, make sure that there are no improvements that could be made to increase their chances of being accepted. So we need some time to be able to do that. The other thing is that when we submit our reference for university applications, that the reference and the personal statement have to complement each other. So we need to see the final personal statement to make sure that our reference fits in with that and complements the information there. So in the UK, applications for UK universities, if students are applying for Oxford or Cambridge, or for any university for medicine, dentistry, or veterinary medicine, we're asking them to have the application complete by the 20th of September. And that leaves us plenty of time before the final UCAS deadline, which is the 15th of October. Similarly, we'd like them, if they are not applying to any of those universities or courses, to have their application done by the 25th of October. That's quite a long time before the final UCAS deadline of the 29th of January, but I think it's really important that students get this done early. First of all, because it means that once their application is submitted, universities will start considering them and they will start releasing offers. So having their application finished early means that students are being considered and are hopefully beginning to receive offers even in October and November. Also, I think it's important for students because once they have completed the UCAS application, they can focus entirely on their A-levels, on making sure that they are achieving the grades that they need to achieve. So we'd like them to get this done to free up their time for the other work they need to do. If they're applying to the United States, then we would like their applications completed by the 27th of September if they are applying to any universities for an early decision. So that's the application where universities will consider students early and release a decision to them, usually by the beginning of December, if they say that this is the one university that they most want to go to, and that if they receive a place, they will turn down any other offers they receive. So that's a conversation I can have with students, and we will be doing a webinar later in the term about US applications, particularly. Again, for regular decision applications, the 15th of November. Anyone who's applying to Hong Kong, we'd like to have those finished by the 25th of October, please. Canada, again, depending on whether they want to apply early or regular decision, that would be the 25th of October or the 15th of November. And then if they're applying to the Netherlands, for the selective programs, the ones that are numerus fixus or the university colleges, we'd like those applications completed by the 15th of November and the 27th otherwise. So I wanted to talk in a bit more detail about the UCAS application. So UCAS is the Universities and Colleges Application Service, and this is the system that all UK universities use to consider and admit their applicants. So students don't need to apply to universities individually. They submit one application through UCAS and it's transmitted to all of the universities they're applying to. They can apply to up to 5 courses. So by now, our students should have decided on the degree that they want to study. So they should have done their research and decided on what course they want to study. And they should have a short list of universities that they would like to apply to. It may be that they can't quite finalize that decision yet because they're still waiting to see whether their predicted grades change, but if we have a short list, that's really helpful. They should have pretty much completed a draft of their personal statement by this stage, and they should have filled in the personal details and the education sections of their UCAS form. So that's what I've been talking to them about, and that's what they've been working on. When I was talking to them about choosing universities, I reminded them that it's really important to check the course details at each university they want to apply to. Universities in the UK certainly are very different from schools in the sense that there is no syllabus for, let's say, a history degree. Every university will decide its own syllabus and its own course content. And so it's really important that students look at each university and decide which ones are the perfect fit for what they actually are interested in and want to study. They obviously need to look at the entry requirements too in the light of their predicted grades. And I've reminded them to make sure they check any English language requirements as well. Couple of other things that it's important that they check, and I've been talking to them about this, is native language A-levels. While many universities will accept an A-level in a native language, some of them don't. And so it's important that students check and that they come and talk to me if they're not sure about that. Similarly, GCSE requirements. Universities are generally very happy to consider students who didn't do GCSEs because they weren't studying in the UK at the time. There can very occasionally be issues where a student maybe isn't taking a subject at A-level that would be a requirement at GCSE. And so again, if they come and talk to me, I can help them figure out what's the best way to approach that. I've also reminded them to check the entry requirements in terms of whether they need to sit a test, whether they might need to do an interview, whether they might need to prepare a portfolio of their artwork, any other things they need to produce ready for their application. And one final thing that's important to remember is that universities in the UK don't see where else the students have applied. So they don't need to worry that one university will be offended if they apply for another. And they also don't need to worry about whether the university is their first choice. They don't need to put them in an order of preference, and universities don't know whether they're the first choice or not. So the personal statement is what the students are working on at the moment, and a really important part of the application, because this is their chance to stand out a little bit to an admissions tutor. The rest of the information that admissions tutors receive is all quite factual. It's grades and personal details. This is where the student can show a little bit of themselves and their interests. So it's their chance to tell an admissions tutor why they want to do this course and why the university should accept them, and to really demonstrate their interests and their skills. And one thing I tell students all the time is it's so important that they back up what they say with evidence. So something I used to say as an admissions tutor was always show, don't tell. So don't just tell me that you're interested in a subject, demonstrate that in the way that you talk about it. And it's quite important, particularly at the most selective universities, I think, to remember that admissions tutors are academics. They're people who've chosen to spend their career studying a particular subject in really quite quite a lot of detail and sometimes quite niche areas of a subject. And that's because they are really fascinated by what they research and what they study, and they want to teach students who are going to be interested in what they do. It's much more fun as an academic to be teaching students who are really enthusiastic and really interested in what you're teaching them and who want to learn more. And so they're looking for students who have that interest and that they feel are going to make the most of the degree. And so that means that everything in a personal statement for the UK universities has to be relevant to the course they're applying for. Just to go over the basics, the personal statement is actually quite short. It's about, I would say, 1 page of A4. The actual limit is 4,000 characters or 47 lines, whichever comes first. And once they reach that limit, the personal statement is chopped off and the admissions tutor won't be able to see anything beyond that. So it's really important to stick to that. I've told the students to focus first on the content, not on the length. So getting the content and the theme right, so the personal statement reads really well, is the most important thing at this point. And then I will help them and they can work on cutting it down to the right length. So they're writing it in their Unifrog accounts and then copying and pasting it into UCAS when it's complete. One thing I've told them really important is not to copy from other people, not to lift things from the internet. So all UCAS personal statements are run through plagiarism detection software to check that they haven't been copied from somewhere else. And so it's really important that it's the student's own work. Similarly, ChatGPT is not something they should be using to write their personal statement for them. I have been working on personal statements now for quite a long time, and I would say it is very easy to detect a personal statement written by ChatGPT. The language is wrong. It's not written in the way that a student would actually speak. And usually it's not very interesting. It's very bland because ChatGPT doesn't have a personality. And so what universities want to hear from is the student themselves. It's also important to remember that they write one personal statement for all of their applications. And so that means, first of all, they can't start their personal statement by saying that they really want to go to Imperial College because that's not going to go down well with other universities. It also means they have to be a little bit careful if they're applying for different courses at different universities. If the courses are very similar, so if they're applying for finance at one university and maybe economics and finance at another, and economics and statistics at a third, that's probably similar enough that the personal statement can work. But if they were applying for vastly different courses like dentistry and history, that's not going to be very easy to do a focused personal statement. The structure of the statement, so they need to start by telling us why are they excited about doing this course. So explaining what it is that attracts them to this course, but also establishing a theme for their statement. Personal statements, because they are short, they do need to be quite focused, and it can work best, I think, if they can have a theme that they're talking about throughout, a particular topic of interest that they can show how they have explored and developed through the time they've been studying. So rather than attempting to just write about a variety of different topics related to what they want to study, we would always say, try and find a common theme where you can really tell a story about your interest. Then we want to know that they are well matched to their chosen course. So following on from that theme, we want to develop talking about the experiences and the reading they've done. So that might be MOOCs they've done, it might be wider reading, it might be work experience, pro-ed courses, anything they've done that is related to their course. And they want to show how they've developed their thinking. So it's not enough just to list things that they've done. What's really important is the reflection. So being able to talk about what they've read or what they've seen, how this has developed their thinking about that topic, what questions it's left them with, and what they now want to find out next. So they really need to develop those ideas through their personal statement. Also the academic skills that they have that are relevant to that course. So again, it's all about showing the skills and the interests that relate to what they want to study, and similarly what other interests they have that might be relevant to the course. And then finally, they want to sum up in one or two sentences, just restate their enthusiasm, their motivation for the course. And it can be nice to maybe mention their plans for the future and how those relate to the degree course. Although I should stress, apart from a very few courses like medicine and veterinary, university admissions tutors are not necessarily admitting to a profession. And so if a student is really fascinated, for example, by physics, but doesn't have a clear career plan at the moment, that is absolutely fine. If they are going to really enjoy studying physics at university, that's what an admissions tutor is looking for. I thought I would show you this. So this comes from UCAS. They've checked the most common opening lines, and you'll see a lot of them have been about from a young age or for as long as I can remember. These are ones that I would avoid just because they are so common. So admissions tutors have seen them a lot. If they can find something a bit more interesting to talk about, or a bit of an interesting way to open it, that would be really good. You'll notice a lot of them are about a young age, as long as I can remember throughout my life. I think it's important for students to realise that universities are interested in their recent experience. So they shouldn't really be talking about things they did in primary school. They need to be talking about things that they've done recently, maybe in the last 2 years, that have really enhanced and developed their interest in the subject. And these are a collection that I shared with the students of common mistakes that I used to find when I was reading personal statements. And I have read an awful lot of them by now. I think I calculated about 16,000 of them. One of the ones that particularly I think is a shame for students to do is these very kind of bland statements. So something about, so studying history has taught me to write essays and argue my point of view. I'm sure that's true. The issue is that it's true for everybody who studies A-level history. So it's not particularly personal to that student. It doesn't really tell us anything about why them and why they are interested in history. So what I would rather see, rather than just that statement, is for somebody to tell me about a history essay that they really enjoyed writing and the arguments they made and how they researched those, because then they're giving me that same information, but they're actually linking it to their unique interests. As we've already mentioned, I've talked about evidence a lot, having the evidence to back up their points. So if they're saying they love a subject, if they're saying they're really interested in a particular topic, being able to talk about what they've done, being able to reflect on what they've done. So not just listing, but being able to actually talk about why that is important to them, what their opinions were on what they read, and making sure that what they're talking about is actually beyond the school curriculum. So as an example, if somebody is applying for English literature at university, it's fine if they want to mention one of the texts they've read at A-level, but I would then like them to go on from that and talk about maybe another work by the same author or different works in the same genre that they were exploring that are not on the syllabus, so that they're actually talking about their own independent reading. And not having too much focus on extracurricular activities is important. So obviously extracurricular activities are very important in terms of, I would say, a student's well-being and preparation for wider study. But in the personal statement, to focus on the ones that are linked to the degree course and how they've helped prepare them for the course is important. Cliches that we see a lot as well. Passion is a word that tends to be overused in personal statements. So we tend to say, rather than just saying I'm passionate about history, again, show us how. So talk about specifics. Quotations are something that students tend to feel they should use. And again, we don't really advise that. Admissions tutors want to hear their own words and what they think, not what somebody else thought. The language as well. These are a couple of genuine examples from personal statements I've read. I know students feel often that because they're applying to a university, they need to have quite formal language and sort of try and speak in a way that they normally wouldn't. Admissions tutors don't mind about that. They're not looking for very formal language or language that's very flowery and that students will never use. And I know particularly with some of our non-native speakers, this can be a real concern for them. And they worry that their English isn't good enough for their personal statement. And what I would say to that is that as an admissions tutor, I was very used to seeing personal statements written by people with a 6 in IELTS or a 6.5 or a 7, and I knew what that looked like. And if I saw a personal statement in not just perfect English, but actually very kind of high level English that people don't usually use, it would make me quite suspicious. I would be worried about whether the student actually wrote that themselves. And so I've said to our students here, don't worry about their English. We can help them to write in a way that is good English, but still sounds like them. And I think that's the important thing. So don't feel that they have to approach a coach to write it for them or to rewrite it in better or fancier English. They also need to be careful about exaggeration or about using boasting too much, because particularly if they're interviewed, this can be really problematic if they've said they've done things they haven't. And humour, again, is something I would generally avoid because not everybody shares the same sense of humour. It's really important that students appreciate they're going to need to write several drafts and get advice on them. And we've already been working on this with them. So they show it to other people, and that's fine. But I think they need to remember that there isn't one correct version of a personal statement. It is their statement, it's personal to them. Everybody they show it to is likely to have slightly different opinions. And so my advice is to show the same version to everyone, get their feedback and then redraft. Because otherwise, if they show it to people one after another and then rewrite it after each session, what I found with in my previous school is that the students who did that, by the time they'd finished, actually there wasn't very much of their voice left in the statement because everyone who'd read it had changed a different bit. So I would always say to them, don't show it to too many people. Focus on the people you think that will help. Don't let people rewrite it for them. And as I said, avoid AI, avoid external coaching. It has to be their voice. We will check all the statements before they're submitted. So Gemma and I will be doing a final check. So we will make sure that the quality is right and that the tone is right for the universities. Finally, I just wanted to show you the process for this term. So this is what I've explained to students, that they need to work on the personal statement. They can draft it, they can get their strategy tutor and subject teachers to help them. And they should have their complete version by either the 20th of September if they're an early applicant, or the 25th of October. They should then send it to me or to Gemma for a review. They don't need to send it to both of us. If it's a science personal statement, I will review them. If it's humanities and social sciences, Gemma will do those. So we have expertise in the different areas. We'll also arrange an external review from a company that we work with called Leading Education. So they will also do a review. The students can then implement any changes, then paste it into UCAS and email me to arrange a meeting. And so this is the process. So as I said, the student will complete their personal statement in UCAS, email it to us for review, and then finally paste the final version into their UCAS form. They will then arrange a meeting with me where I will check the whole form for them and make sure they don't need to do any corrections, and they will then press send on their application form. After that, I will then check the reference that has been written and make sure that it's the right length and that any changes that might be needed are done. And Tess, our principal, will then read the reference to each student individually and discuss any amendments that they would like with them. Once that's been done and agreed, I will upload the reference and the predicted grades into UCAS. And after Tess or Gemma has done a final review of the whole application, it will be submitted to UCAS. And my aim is that we will do that within 72 hours of the student sending the application. If they all choose to send their application on the same day, that might be tricky, but we are working with them to make sure that doesn't happen and that they are getting their applications completed in good time. That's everything I wanted to say. So I think I will stop sharing my screen, and I think we should have a look at the questions and just see if anyone has any questions for us.
Can the choice of university be changed after the 25th of October? Kirsten, I think I'll hand this over to you because it is quite a technical question.
Okay, so I guess the question is, in theory, yes. So if a student hasn't submitted their application to UCAS at that point, then yes, of course. They can come and talk to me, and we can talk before they submit their application and make sure that they're entirely happy with their choice of universities. If a student has submitted their application to UCAS, then it gets more complicated. So there is a short window after the application has actually been sent by me to UCAS where a student could change their university choice, but that is quite a limited time period. So I usually try to work with students before that point to make sure that they're happy with their choices. But yes, if a student has completed their application but wants to maybe think about a university choice a bit more, then they should just talk to me, and I will make sure that the application is not submitted until they are entirely.
Okay, so we will end the webinar at this point. Thank you, and we look forward to reading lots of excellent personal statements and helping our students head off to some really fantastic universities across the next academic year. And we will be in touch with further webinars, particularly about our USA processes later on.